Okay, some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over. Well, it's not, because it's just about to start. Welcome to the World Cup Hollywood Balls Live, sponsored by the Football app. Joining me today are Julian Dowe of Football for Football, an amazing resource used by the players, the professionals, coaches. More about that later. Welcome, gang, and specifically welcome to Super Kevin Campbell and our very own George from TFA.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, everyone. Hi, Julian. You okay, mate?
I'm very well, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good.
Good stuff. Listen, we've got a lot to get through. It is World Cup weekend. It's already started. And what's piqued my interest as well is the amount of youth players that are available to, I'm going to say, England and Scotland. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. Some great games. And it's just great to see that World Cup logo upon us once again. So much football happening. And of course, welcome to the Football app members. We've got a code for you, so stick with us. That is going to enable you to enter the room. And if you're not a TFA member, well, why not? You've got enough time now. This is our third show, sponsored by the guys, the Football app. We'll be catching up with George to see what's going on there as well. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get all of the information, and you too can get your points. And as a famous game show host once said, points make prizes. Okay, I'll start with you, Kev. What have you been up to this week?
I've had a busy week. I thought it would be very quiet, but there's been quite a few things going on in the background, and I'm sure it will all come out in the wash a bit later. A couple of new projects, and
good man.
Yeah, and just just normal football stuff as well. Podcasting and stuff like that. So it's been quite a busy week, Pete.
Big shout out to our friends at the Highbury squad as well, which you're a part of, Kev. Love them. They happily they welcomed me on the show, which was great. So I'm going to say a big hello to them. A big hello to all of the fans that tuned in last night on the Football app. We had a great guest, myself and George. We were talking to CEO of the African Football Foundation, Brian Wasala. Also later on, we got some very big news about a very special guest, an African legend that's going to be appearing on the show. So without further ado, George, what have you been up to this week apart from hosting shows with my good self?
Yeah, it was a great show yesterday with Brian. Very enjoyable, I must say. Very impressive. Brian is still a young man, but it's been each week. Yes, each week gets busier. There's much more incoming for the activity of the Football app. Frankly, I don't mind sharing. We're in discussions with football clubs, with football players, with more locations. It's just fantastic. It's 24/7 stuff. Like I say, I'm honored to be just part of a great team, and the team is doing great stuff. And and of course, Super Kev is helping enormously as always. Thank you, Super Kev.
You're welcome.
You'll be hearing a lot of things, I'm sure.
Okay, great stuff. Julian, going to turn our attentions to you. We're going to dive in. I just said off air, funnily enough, that we could probably spend a whole show with detailing you. But for the listeners, I mean, we'll get on to how Football for Football came about. But you were involved as a player earlier on in your life, weren't you? And how did it all start?
Well, absolutely. This, again, it is full circle. This is one of the reasons why I did start Football for Football. But I was one of those, Kevin's been in the game. He's seen a lot, and he would have seen these early bloomers, these young boys who burst onto the scene. And I did that 14, 15, 16. I was, trained with first team players, playing first team football at 16. But unfortunately, I didn't have the support, around me at that time. And the support is not necessarily even, parents doing the right things and giving that information. It's just going into a professional football environment, which is completely different. I've gone from paying 50 pence on a Sunday, and then within 2 months, I'm playing, for a living against people playing for the mortgages and the families. And I couldn't make that adjustment, readily at that particular moment in time, because for me, it was just still a love of the game, but not realizing the opportunities in front of me. So I made my professional debut at 16 for Wigan Athletic. And then I had my first knee operation at 16, had my second one at 17, my third one at 21, So I was always on a downward spiral, and I knew, well, when you're a young lad, Kevin will tell you, you think you're bulletproof, you think it's never going to end. So you still, you're not putting those caveats, you're not putting those safeguard things in play. You're just trying to move forward with momentum. And then, funny enough, after I left Wigan, I ended up going to Spain. So I signed for Atletico Marbella when I was 18, which was like 10 years before Beckham went. So I'm still the youngest, and first British teenager, to sign in Spain. And again, I've gone into these environments and I've not really understood the full application. And, again, not being patronizing to Kevin, but, Kevin had a career for a reason. There's lots of people with talent, but, marrying that talent with application and purpose, that's why professional footballers are what they are. And that's why you got to give them respect. And, totally, I understand how hard it was for me to break into the game and more importantly, stay in the game. So the ones that do, full credit.
Okay, you said that obviously your first professional gig was with Wigan, but I mean, as a youngster, the journey started, right at the very top. Yeah, Man United were looking, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, at 13, 14, I was probably in the top, 30 in the country. So I was obviously that's standard. Kevin knows England schoolboys, Lilleshall. So that's a fact. You are in the top percentile. But even though I had 9 years as a professional player, but leading up to that, my mum's never seen me play football. That was the kind of, upbringing I had, sort of thing. And so I was making decisions at 13, 14 that I didn't realize were going to tarnish me for the rest of my career. So I was at Man United, left, just thought like it's Sunday League Club, I'm not going anymore. Then, I went to Everton. Unfortunately, fractured my spine at 15. Went undiagnosed for like 6 months, had to pull out the England schoolboy squad. And then when I came back into it, City snapped me up. And I used to think it was normal because City would call me in, come to school and say, you got to go and see the physio. And I'm thinking, hang on, I'm fit now, I'm playing. And then I'd go in and I'd be training with the first team. And I'd be thinking, where are the rest of the schoolboys? Why are they not in? Not realizing because the club they didn't have a parent to bounce things off. They didn't even have a representative to bounce things off. And it was too young to impart on myself. So again, I left an elite environment because it was a strange one. I wasn't good enough to play lower league football. I know it sounds daft because I couldn't manage the game properly. I could play with natural attributes where lower down, you have to play within yourself and you need to manage a game. I could get away with a run, a shot where at the higher level, Kevin, they're the kind of things that decide games. So you get a bit more leniency because you've got better players around you to pick up the pieces. But when you go lower down, you're expected to play more percentage football and more economical. And I couldn't do that. So when I went to Wigan, even though I'm playing, youth team, top goal scorer, even though I played, 30 games less, reserve top goal scorer. But when I went into the first team environment, I'm trying to do stuff where it's off the cuff and it's a bit clever. And you've got senior pros who've, been in the game 15 and looking at me going, are you for real? Sort of thing. I'll get hold of it. And I'm thinking, but why is he not seeing that? Or why has he not done that? And that's where I couldn't really make that adjustment.
Right. I'm going to bring George in here because George and I, we had a fascinating chat on the African forum yesterday evening with a guy who set up a forum in Africa to look after footballers who finish in the game. And it was fascinating. And, George, what we were saying last night, it resonates here as well, doesn't it? That as Brian was saying yesterday evening, it's all very well imagining the life of a footballer, but there's so much more to look after.
Yeah, Brian was talking about the need. What he's working on is providing a whole ecosystem for the footballing community, both for young women and young men who are entering the game, in the game, just about to make it, or indeed, as most do, just don't make it, right? So, Julian, to your point, some of the things you're talking to, it's exactly what Brian was talking to about providing an infrastructure, and that's the word he used, an infrastructure, almost of a whole complete services to help young men and young women in the game if they don't make it, or even if they do make it, some of the positive steps they need to with assistance and support. Yeah.
Absolutely, George. And this is why, sorry to jump in there. This is mainly, what we set up with Football for Football. It is the real time. That's the validation. The people who've done it, they're your reference point. Everybody's entitled to an opinion in football, but unless you've got a pair of boots and you completed the pathway, you can't validate that as advice, and you can't peddle it. So I've been quite fortunate. I've managed to get some very, very good people involved, people I've played with, people I've played against, and more importantly, people who are buying into what we're trying to do.
I think as well, I'm going to ask Kev as well, but Julian, reading through the website, which is fascinating, it's literally, that's probably why there are so many current pros, coaches that are buying into that. You literally cannot buy the knowledge of having been in the game. Would you say so, Kev?
Well, I think that the key for anything is validity.
Yeah.
And if something's valid, then and you look at it as a reference point, you need to see people who you could relate to. And that's the one thing that Julian has. Julian has the relationships with the people who actually have been there, seen it, been on your TV screen, been a poster on your wall. They're the ones who are telling you what to do, how to do it, etc. So it's not just a reference point. It's so valid that these players are doing it and saying it. You know, there's nothing better than to come from a player who's actually done it. So, listen, I think it's going to be huge, and I'd love to see it connected with obviously TFA, because I think TFA and football for football, it goes hand in glove. To be honest,
I'd love to follow up, Julia, to see how we can help.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's so refreshing, and we touched on this yesterday, Pete, if you recall. You know, footballers, they get a lot of stick. You know, they are, the top players, they get a lot of money, they get a lot of stick, but it's a difficult life for sure. But the vast majority of big footballers actually care, right? And I don't think they get the credit. You look at Julian; he's just telling you here that he's getting a lot of help from players in the game, around the game, big names, right? They care and they do want to give back, and it's not just something that's just trite, just for the sake of it. They mean it, right, Julian? You see this, you see this, Julian, right?
Oh, listen, George. If I tell you the level of content, and again, Pete, thanks for this, looking at the site, but what's on there now, and I don't mean to be, I promise you, it's less than 0.5%. Already, we've got 47 terabytes of content ready to come. We've got the biggest collection of pro players, coaches, and experts covering more areas of the game than anyone. And what we've done, it is an elite platform, but it's not elitist. As much as we've got the guy who's captained somebody in the World Cup final and won the Champions League and multiple Premier League titles. And then we've got a guy who played 21 years in League Two. And he's played so 21 years. He got paid as a professional footballer in League Two. And he said, I knew my division. I knew how to play. Going back to what I was saying. And then even on, that's the nice side. That's the players. But we've got the people who support them as well. We've got 9 professors. We've got the biggest collection of PhDs. So all the people who support the players, on and off the pitch, they're there too. Because one of my big beliefs was everybody talks about grassroots football. And unfortunately, the only people giving information to grassroots football are grassroots people. It's getting better, but it's not at the rate it needs to be. Because I believe just because you're perceived non-elite, you shouldn't be denied elite resource. And yes, you're right. Not everybody's going to be a Premier League player. Not everybody's going to be a pro. But the ones who are on that journey, aspirational, now, Kev will tell you, the dressing room's changed. That asking up has gone. That dynamic of tapping in. Why would you not? I had a pro player the other day, plays in the Championship, and he's got these young lads coming in or walking past the dressing room. He goes, Julian, there's a dressing room here with thousands of games of experience. And these young lads would rather go on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. He said, and an academy coach said the greatest thing to me. He said, Julian, please get this live. Get it out there. I said, why? He goes, I've got these young lads learning football from somebody who's got 200,000 YouTube followers. I want to learn from somebody who's played 200 games. But that disconnects there. So this is why we've got this together. And when it does go, it's going to service the elite who want to go aspirational, but also it'll enhance the participation level of those at the grassroots as well. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Speaking of international level, we're going to dive in because it is a World Cup flavour. And youth, we've mentioned youth there, and youth's a key in this. I'm going to start with England, and Kev, I'm going to start with you. I'm reading a lot this week. I mean, obviously, you put 5 past San Marino, you would expect it, but it's a good result. It's a good start. I'm reading a lot though that Gareth Southgate's struggling. He's got literally an embarrassment of riches with young talent. It's trying to fit them all in, isn't it?
look, how long have these academies been in place? These academies have been in place a long, long time. And it's about time we had an embarrassment of riches, Pete, if you think about it. So any manager worth his salt wants to have enough quality players that he can choose from, that he can fatten that squad with, that can make a difference in the big games. Left a lot of the big boys out, and the kind of second lot done a fantastic job, won the game 5-0. Plenty of players coming on. Ollie Watkins getting his first goal. Phil Foden was excellent. You know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, etc., doing so well. For us, the key is it has to reflect in winning a trophy, Pete. That's what it's got to do, because we've been here before. Oh, we've got quality players. We've got quality players. Yeah. If you don't win anything, you know, we're back to square one, aren't we? So it's got to manifest in winning a trophy.
And that it got me thinking this morning, George, as well, about, you know, at this time when major tournaments start and they start to begin, it's very much an English trait to, is this our tournament? Can, you know, they've got to be up there, it's got to be expected. Well, yes, of course it has, but what Kevin says is it's critical now for Southgate. He's got to deliver something, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think, look, by and large, I think Gareth Southgate has done a good job. But to Kevin's point, it's long overdue for England to win something, right? As the England national team, for all England fans, Chris Waddle's shot in the semi-final in 1990 against Germany, where that trajectory, 9 times out of 10, that goes in off the post and it comes straight back out. It
still goes in when I watch it, George.
I know, right? It's etched on everybody's memory, and we all feel, we're not lucky, we're unlucky. We have to deal with that, right? We have to become lucky. We have to win something, right? But you know, every time I watch Waddle's shot, it's impossible how it comes out. It doesn't go in. That's credible. But we had to turn it around, right? But so I agree completely with Kevin. Gareth Southgate, he's got what some feel is an embarrassment of riches now. Who knows what the best team is, but he's got enough around him now to make it happen. And to Gareth Southgate, look, the pressure's on, man. You know,
the pressure's on. Speaking of youth, Julian, I mean, you're talking about, you know, you're looking at people like Mason Mount, who they're talking about building a team around. Jude Bellingham's now in the equation. My question to you as a fan, to someone that is involved in what you're involved in, and as a former player, is it's all very well the fans demanding to build a team around Mason Mount based on talent alone, but you know, that's a big thing to carry, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's not just about the talents; it's about the mentality and personality to be able to, you know, shoulder that responsibility. And you know, when you ask about this week, I'm going to let you into a bit of a world exclusive on our side. I was sat with Les Reed this week, and Les Reed, I'm telling you, we had 2 hours, and my head was blown to pieces. What he said about the setup and about this expectation with England, they are on track, because what they do, the stats and data they've got in place. Like, for instance, you know, St. George's Park, for instance. St. George's Park was his brainchild, Hal Wilkinson, 10 years previous. So he said we're 10 years behind. He said, could you imagine where we would be now? But also what he's saying is the pathway is working, because they call it the profile. So when England went out to Argentina and eventually, obviously, Brazil, who won the tournament, he said, look at the profile. So our young guns were Owen, Beckham and Scholes. They'd not played so many youth tournaments. The Portuguese, the Argentinians and the Brazilians, they'd played multiple tournaments as young players. So they understood the tournament environment. They understood the tournament culture. They understood being away from home. They understood how to manifest and collectively play as a player. Now, with somebody like Mount, because he's playing for Chelsea, they're playing in Europe, same with Bellingham, they are getting that exposure to playing against other opposition, but it's also managing tournament football, which is a different, you know, proposition than just getting a call up and starting in a game.
Yeah,
there's so many facets, isn't there? And I find it, you know, my own dad says to me, we'd be sitting watching the match, and some commentators will say, "Oh, he's not had a good run, or he's not." But my dad will say to me, "Look, it's like any job, time to settle in, time to learn about a new city, maybe time to learn about a new culture. The fans just expect, goals, goals, goals. There's a huge range of things to put together, isn't there?"
Yeah, the dynamics are just multiple. I mean, to Julian's point, a successful team winning the World Cup needs to have rhythm, but that's contextual, right? It's not just knowing how you play with each other, the right formations, but it's contextual for the moment, right? Playing in one tournament is very different from playing in another tournament, right? Playing in one geography can be different from playing in another geography, right? So I identify with Julian says, it's the more experience you have in those contextual moments, the more chance you have, right? We often speak, players need to be just 1%, a little bit more than the others, and they get ahead. The teams at any level is the same, but you need that contextual experience of that environment to get it over the line, right?
Sorry, just for Kevin will know. I was with previously as well, Noel Blake. And Noel Blake,
great guy,
unbelievable. Why he's not involved in football? Because what you're seeing now with how Southgate sets up was what he was putting in the 16s, the 17s, the 18s, the 19s, and the 20s, and it was exactly with England, and it was against the grain of what he was being told by the FA, Kev, because he was told they want to play 4-4-2. When the midfielder gets the ball, he wants to look up and see two strikers. He said, "I've got Sterling, I've got Kane, I've got Barkley, I've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, I've got Shelby." He goes, "I'm putting them in."
Yeah.
And then you accommodate around that. And then all of a sudden, he said, when we played Spain, when we played Holland, when we played Germany, he said they were afforded so many more allowances to play expansive freedom football. But we were almost pigeonholed and stereotyped unfairly, even though we've got the players in order to do that thing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. Gonna move on a bit. Also, many thanks for all the messages. Keep them coming in. Literally hundreds pouring in from our football app family, George, from the TFA. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching on, and keep up to date. We've got lots to get through. Also, Kev, you will know from previous. I've had Barry Ashworth on the phone this morning. Now, Barry was one of our first guests on Hollywood Balls Live, sponsored by the Football app, of Dub Pistols fame. And I know Barry's probably lying in bed having a cup of coffee this morning, planning his huge summer festival, which we will feature, no doubt, because he'll be coming back on the show to tell us all about it. Barry is basically going to go head-to-head with you again. He says it's about time.
Hold on. So he's not sent the tickets. He wants to go head-to-head with me. He's not sent the tickets.
He hasn't sent the tickets yet.
All right. Typical Barry then.
Yeah. For later on, I know everyone is loving Take Them On, and our very own George, he could retire this weekend, by the way, because he's got a played one, won one.
He's had a flyer, isn't he? He's had a flyer.
Yeah, he scored
beginner's luck. Beginner's luck.
He scored 5 points last week, along with our very own Graham the Jinx. Now, I was texting. Kev, you sent me a brilliant text this morning about Graham. He's won the cup. They've won the cup. He's won Take Them On. Life couldn't be rosier for Sunderland fans at the moment.
Oh, God.
But we'll get on to that. Staying on the international side, Kev, and it's a similar trait because Steve Clarke's doing a really fantastic job at Scotland. You're talking about a player, basically, as Julian has said, who knows what it's all about. I remember Steve Clarke being at Newcastle. With the great Sir Bobby, and he was absolutely fantastic. I was devastated when he left my club. He's doing a great job there. But again, talking about building a team around players, you've got McTominay, there's the lad from Villa who's playing well. Kev, Scotland, their fans should be quite excited, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think having a manager in place who is happy to give youth a chance as well is really important for the job. Steve Clarke was a good player, and he's not a loud mouth. He's a quiet man who gets the job done. That's really important. And they have got some really, really good players who are doing well in the Premiership in that Scotland squad now. And Look, if you can't build around these quality players who are playing in the Premier League, you might as well fold the Scotland national team. These guys have won titles. These guys are doing it week in, week out for some of the biggest clubs around. So Scotland are in good hands at the moment. Fine fettle right now.
It is about time. I mean, they've always so well supported. They travel. Many friends of mine, they just, they're itching for a tournament. A good result. They dug in the other night, but when they looked like they could get beat.
It was a good result. I've got to say, it's always great when there's a good Scottish national team and they're playing well. For many years, that hasn't been the case. And I'm just hoping we're now on the cusp of that changing, right? There's a good and a growing nucleus of good Scottish players, and the game is always better with a great Scottish team, right? And I hope that it continues.
Julian, speaking of younger players, Billy Gilmour, what would you be doing with him? What would be the suggestions for him right now? He's obviously got a great manager at club level and also now international.
Yeah, with somebody like him, it's a strange one because you see what he plays quite safe when he's playing for Chelsea, but I think he's got that much quality on the ball. You could push him a bit further forward and you get you McTominay sitting in because you look at their midfield, they've always had quite industrious midfielders. Like if you look at McGinn, he's got 8 in 30, which from midfield is ridiculous. But then you look up front, the top striker's got 2. Okay, he's done it in 8 games, but this is why I think the masterstroke of getting somebody like Che Adams to step up could give them a totally new dimension. Because that young squad, I think Robertson's got 47 caps. He's the highest outfield player. Then the rest, there's a couple on 30, and then the rest are down 20. So it is a young squad. It is developing. But what's quite clever with Steve Clarke, as you've mentioned, and Kevin know about this being in dressing rooms, he's I won't say weeded out. He's filtered out the old guard because he needs a stronger message. He needs a new message, and he needs new people who are going to be buying in and be galvanized by what he's trying to put on the plate.
Yeah. Julie, do you see, maybe it's just wishful thinking on my behalf, but when I looked at the Scottish team, I'm not saying there's a spring in their step yet, but I see the semblance of more self-belief and more we can do this and more self-confidence. Maybe it's the way Steven set it up. I don't. But do you see that? Is it my just wishful thinking?
Well, no, it's not wishful thinking. As Kev said before, these guys have won. You got a European Cup winner. You got a Premier League champion. So that validation comes, and whether you like it or not, that status. Football's about ego. These guys are at the top of the game. The top performers. The only thing that I'm quite surprised about somebody like Fleck not getting more game time because he's decent. Okay, he's playing in a struggling Sheffield team. But he's a decent, performer. Yeah. But the Scotland players, I think it's testament to the youth as well. Youth is all about exuberance, ego. They'll back themselves. So they will go toe to toe with most.
That's good.
Very interesting. On the discussions last night, I've got to tell Kev this because it's such a good Dubai story, a place that Kev's visited many times and been lucky enough to hook up with him. We were talking with Brian, the CEO of the African Football Foundation, and he mentioned Kanu. And it brought George now knows, but it brought up a really funny story. I was fortunate enough to be looking after the Portsmouth team when they were out here in Dubai. And at that time, Kanu was they had a wonderful team. Harry Redknapp was a manager. Kanu was involved. Twilight of his career. Andy Cole was there. Sol Campbell. There was a great side, and they were at the Dubai World Cup, which takes place this weekend, by the way, in the UAE, richest horse race in the world, and all that. So anyway, they were telling me a story. Matty Taylor told me the story that they have a very famous kit man that sits on the bench with them, and Julian, you're talking about tactics. This is brilliant. So Portsmouth they're 1-0 down. And they're at Fratton Park, and obviously Big Dave, the kit man, sitting behind the bench. He's allowed on the bench. He's a good luck charm. And there's 10 minutes to go, and he leans over and he taps Harry Redknapp on the shoulder, and he goes, "Here, Gaffer," he said, "do you not think it's about time you got Kanu on?" So talking of tactics. So Harry Redknapp says, "You what?" He says, I just think, you should maybe get Kanu on. So Kanu comes on, scores 2 goals. Portsmouth win 2-1, and Big Dave, the kit man, is the best thing since sliced bread. So there you go with your football tactics.
What does Harry know? What does Harry know?
What does he know? I mean, there you go. Get him on. because I know you've got your own funny stories, and it will have to remain nameless. If people want to know who it is, they can go and Google it. But you said you were in Spain, Julian, but you left Spain for the sunny shores of Scotland. An incredible story with one of your first tasks as a footballer at Ayr was to end a particular relationship for your gaffer. Am I right?
Oh, I got picked up at the airport, flown in from Malaga, and the man just picked me up and he said, right, I thought we can go straight to the hotel. So I'm 19. And he says, oh, by the way, he says, what? You're going to have to go and finish with my girlfriend for me. I was like, what? He goes, you're going to have to finish with my girlfriend for me. I can't tell her, she's nuts. So I'm like, come on. I'm like, is this a wind up? I thought he's being tested here. Yeah. So we're driving, we go into Glasgow and we go into this bar and she goes, right, over there. Just go and tell her. And I says, hi, are you X, Y, and Z? He goes, yeah. Well, and I'm there stumbling over my words. I'm going, and remember that song, Shakespeare's Sister? You know, your history. Shoulder. What he's trying to say is, your history.
Amazing. Prepare for that one in the manual. It moves us nicely on to Hollywood Baller of the Week. We're going to start with you, Kev. There's a lot that's been happening. I mean, even when there's no Premier League football, there's international football, there's football news. So have you got a hero, a Hollywood Baller of the Week for us?
Yeah, I do. And it's not one that you would expect. My Hollywood Baller of the Week is Thierry Henry.
Okay.
For getting off Twitter, coming off social media, because the social media companies do not do anything about racism.
Yeah.
And he said he's going to come off them. Obviously, I've put the word out that it needs to come onto the football app.
Yeah.
And because there's none of that here, but
not tolerated.
Again, it's not tolerated on the football app, which is great. But again, if these players come out and talk about these things, but never leave, you know, what's the point?
Yeah. So it's making a statement. George, Baller of the Week for you, sir?
It's actually along similar lines. It's Scott Brown from Celtic, right?
Yeah.
Celtic were fantastic. They should have beaten Rangers. It was a great game.
It was a great game.
But there was a moment in the game before the game started. I don't know how many people noticed it. Scott Brown went to Kamara and embraced him. Now, for an old firm derby, Celtic Rangers, for a player like Scott Brown to go and put his arm around Kamara and say, I'm with you, man, right? That was a great, to me, he gets the vote of the week just for that. But I would say Eduardo was great in that game as well for Celtic.
Yeah. It was a great game to watch. It was action-packed, and Kev wasn't far off with, you know, he quite rightly said that Celtic would go at it. They did. They played the better football. But it's as it says, as Kev says, always tells me, by the way, when my team are getting beat, it's a funny old game. And your man who scored for Rangers, he never scored against Celtic, so he was bang on with that. Julian, have you got a hero, a Hollywood Baller of the Week for us?
Do you know what? I'm going to have to go football, because obviously the boys have, you know, covered, you know, the absolutely right, you know, sort of like stances and, you know, gestures there. But I'm going with McGinn's overhead kick, because you're confident. You're talking about springing your step. That was acrobatic. It was dramatic. It was athletic. You know, fantastic.
Great player, him, by the way, isn't he? He sort of
really good
with bigger moves as well. All due respect to Villa fans, but you know, whenever someone of that club level starts to play well, but he's got such a great touch for a big man.
Yeah. He's got a great touch. He's got a good engine, and you know what? He kind of goes under the Grealish. Jack Grealish is the main guy. He does his job in that midfield, and he's a toughie, mate. He's tough, and he gets stuck in, and he's adding goals. And if a midfielder, central midfielder, who's a left footer, could add goals, they're premium. Pete, they're real premium.
1 in 4 international level.
Yeah,
very good, very good.
I mean, a lot of games. Just going through some of the texts as well, and of course, they're worth mentioning. But a great question: do Wales rely heavily on Gareth Bale as a team when they do have They do have other great players in there, but is there a lot of responsibility on Bale's shoulders, do you think, guys?
Too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, for Bale and Ramsey over the years, it's been them really carrying the team most of the time. You know, they had a great Euros, getting to the semi-final, etc. And those boys were buzzing. But realistically, there ain't a lot of. You look in the top league, there aren't a lot of top Welsh internationals around. So these guys are the superstars, and the others have to make up the numbers.
Go for it. Yeah, go, Jim.
Sorry, so we, with Football for Football, we've got about 6 members of the Euro team who've, done content with us and, giving advice and everything. And obviously the Gareth Bale thing comes up, and, Kev will know this. Obviously, when Kev was flying, when you've got a player who is performing like that, it does lift everybody, and they do understand and respect that the dynamic will be shifted to accommodate them. And I think you'll see Gareth Bale playing a different type of role. It won't be I think it'll be more higher up the pitch, and balls will be going into him as opposed to him doing the gut busting runs
the leg
from
work,
there.
doing all the leg work. Yeah.
But they've got people like Ethan Ampadu. They've got other lads who are coming through. So there is something there. It's just whether that gap between the very senior and the emerging ones can be bridged in that grey area.
Amanda, good morning to you. Princess Guna, lovely to hear from you. She says, at least none of us have to worry about our own teams causing us stress this weekend. I will gladly back that, because it's been like, it is. It's like having a weekend off. So here to Amanda. I'm sure we'll be back to the stress. We're just going to leave it behind for this weekend and concentrate on the international side. Again, you're looking at Wales. What do you think realistically, Kev, that their aim is going to be?
Well, obviously they want to qualify. Realistically, they want to qualify. It's going to be a long shot, because Gareth Bale isn't the player he once was, as Julian alluded to. They might have to utilize him a bit higher up the pitch. So that means some of the other players have to do a little bit more to get him the ball in key areas. So that's going to be the interesting part. If they could qualify, they've swum the channel. If they could have a good campaign and be close, I think they've done well. But I think it's going to be a really tight one for them to qualify. Pete.
Congratulations to them on winning the rugby. Scotland did them a favour by defeating France. So congratulations to all with the red jersey in the other sport that we like to follow. Okay, I do have to touch on more sad news. It seems that we lose legends regularly over the coming years. Frank Worthington, a player that unfortunately for me, I didn't get to see. I've seen all the clips and I've seen about it. The working man's George Best, and of course I watched that clip of that goal. It's just absolutely fantastic. My only sort of query on that is how the heck the commentator didn't lose his stack with that goal. He was just politely applauded and said, "What a wonderful finish." A great player who had a great love of Elvis. George, any memories of Frank?
Yeah, he was a big Elvis fan. He was just a little bit before my time. I was a nipper, certainly. But he was a mercurial player. And remember, in that era, to play with such skill in such conditions where defenders had license to kick the hell out of you, right, and never get booked, let alone a foul even, right? Great mercurial. He was a big Elvis fan. He was a kind of a cult hero, actually. Worthington, really, he was a cult hero, and it's sad to see him go. No age nowadays. It's no age. So Frank Worthington, thank you, and may you R.I.P. and lots of love to his family. But he was a mercurial, great player. Yeah,
and George, you mentioned there. The kind of player he was, George. You mentioned there getting kicked to smithereens on the pitches. He didn't wear shin pads.
No, I know.
He wouldn't wear shin pads. He'd wear them, or he'd wear those very small, right down near his toes, under his tongue. He was absolutely madness. So go on. I played with his nephew called Gary Worthington at Wigan, and same. So honestly, they were spit. They had quite a big beak. They loved the hair, but he just had lovely feet. He wasn't the quickest, but he had absolutely amazing feet, just so silky.
Yeah, he had almost, he wasn't an arrogant player, but he was a player who was saying, "Look, I know how good I am. Bring it on. You can kick the lumps out of me, but bring it on."
It was a flair player, wasn't he? He was flair player.
Beautiful. Yeah. And he made a difference for so many people. Yeah, it was wonderful. Just wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, it's time for that time where gauntlets getting thrown down left, right, and centre. Barry Ashworth on the phone, challenging,
giving it plenty. Yeah, I like it.
Giving it big. We'll get back on that. For all of you that want to know, the Dub Pistols are having their own big. By the way, this is big mucky weekender. I think it's down Winchester way. I'll get more details off our Barry for that when we can all return to normal in the UK. That will be one. But meantime, Barry's got his. We're going internationally this weekend with all the games. So we'll start next to me with Kev. First game we've got is obviously we've got Albania and England.
Yeah, Albania, England. Listen, this could be a potential banana skin, but I can't see it. I see England winning this pretty comfortably. If I'm honest with you, we've got that much firepower. If we can't win this, we might as well shut the shop. I'll be honest with you.
Cancel the World Cup.
Yeah, cancelled a lot. I'm going for a 3-1 win for England.
No clean sheet.
No clean sheet.
George, yourself?
2-0 England.
Yeah, good man. And Julian?
I'm 2-0 England also.
2-0 England. Okay, Kev, back to you. Barry, by the way, has gone 4-0 to England. Barry Ashworth, our own Baz, Liverpool lover. Okay, Israel, Scotland, Kev. Good game, that.
Good game. And I just don't think Scotland are quite there yet. And away from home is always a difficult one. I'm going to go 2-1 Israel.
2-1 Israel. Okay, quick hello to Anya in Ireland. I knew she would pop up as soon as I mentioned the rugby. Hope all is well with you. Hope to see you in Dubai soon. Okay, George.
I'm hoping this will be a defining moment for Scotland. A victory away to Israel will do it. I'm praying, and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go Israel 1, Scotland 2.
Awesome. I look forward to that one. You're praying, you say, so you're carrying the hopes of a nation on your shoulders, George.
Oh, listen. If Scotland win this game, they're going to get so much momentum, so much wind in their sails. It could be a defining moment. It could be.
Got to ask Kev before I come to you, Julian. Amanda's asking, obviously an end joke, I reckon, from the pod here. Should England throw the kitchen sink at it, Kev?
No, the chicken sink, it says.
The chicken sink.
Chicken sink, yes. Not you put the chicken in the sink and throw it. The chicken sink, yes.
All right. Okay, we're moving swiftly on where I should have got in the first place. Julian, scores for you, mate.
And George, you're right. The momentum's. That's why I'm going for 0-0.
Brilliant. Can't be the good 0-0. Kev, back to you. We're going Romania.
So
Germany.
What does Barry say?
Oh, Barry's gone. Sorry, my apologies, Barry. Yeah, he's gone for a Scotland win 1-0.
1-0 Scotland.
Are you making a note of Barry's scores as well? Are you?
You're damn right I am. Because you know what? I'm gonna make sure he's giving it all the math. So I've got to log his scores.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Romania, Germany.
Good game, but I think the Germans are going to be a little bit too strong. I'm going 2-0 Germany.
Just before I move on to George with that, Kev, the German side, do they ever change? Have they just been playing the same team for the last 20 years? They're talking about youth coming through. They just don't bother. They're like robots.
They put them in a machine and regenerate them and make them younger and then come back. It's unbelievable what they do. Yeah. But yeah, they're going to be a little bit too strong, I think, Pete.
George, Romania, Germany for you.
2-0 to Germany, same.
Okay, and Julian?
2-1 Germany.
2-1 Germany, Romania on the score sheet. 2-0 for Barry. Kev, just make a note of that one, will you, if you don't mind?
Is that to Romania?
Not Germany. Brilliant. Okay, Kev. Bulgaria, Italy. Find this one fascinating.
Do you know what? This is the tie that is a banana skin for all of us, by the way. Bulgaria at home, they're always very difficult. Always very difficult. But I'm gonna go Italy 2-1 in this one. It's just a hunch. I'll be honest with you.
Listen, it's a beautiful game. Look, in the week, Turkey did Holland, Netherlands,
big
4-2,
time.
right?
Yeah.
That was a great result for Turkey. Anything can happen. I think Belgium, Italy will be a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
Bulgaria.
Sorry. Tight. Yeah, Bulgaria, Italy, 1-1.
1-1.
Bulgaria, it won't be easy for Italy. I fancy 1-1 Bulgaria.
You could be right, George. I'll tell you.
I think typical Italy 1-0 away win.
1-0 to the Italy. And Baz has taken, Barry's taken a score draw, 1-1, Kev.
Okay.
For our Baz. Georgia against Spain. Georgia on my mind.
I think Spain are mega strong, aren't they? And I think they'll get the job done. It's just a matter of how many will they concede. I'm not so sure. I'm going to go 3-0 Spain.
Okay, 3-0 Spain. George?
2-0 Spain.
2-0 to Spain. And rounding up, Julian?
Yo también. 2 para Español y Georgia 0.
2-0 Spain.
Yeah, I was just looking for the Google translation.
2-0 Spain.
You didn't do the Scottish one in a Scottish accent, though. We'll let you off with that. Barry's gone for 4-0 to Spain. We will keep everyone posted on that because obviously Kevin and Barry are they're basically fighting, George, for the all-time biggest score, and I think someone's going to blindside them on this.
I haven't. I've got to get my skates on. I haven't done the predictions in the football app today.
Again. I mean, that's
I missed it. I missed it yesterday. I felt like hanging myself. Russia, Slovenia. Oh boy, what do you reckon on that one, guys? Anyway, so that I'll give it.
What I'm going to do before we go is we'd like to catch up with Georgie. Georgie said it has been a hectic week, and obviously we had a wonderful interview last night, and I love our Friday night interviews with our football app community. They're brilliant. What have you been up to over the last week, and what can we expect next week?
Firstly, a big shout out to the community of the football app worldwide. They're in more than 50 countries, and the love is incredible. They all have a suspicion that we're doing more and better things, and they're right to think that. If I'm honest, a lot of this week has been engaged with dialogues with key members of the ecosystem, fans number one, but of course football clubs and players. And the wonderful thing is we're talking to clubs and players all over the world, and more than 50% of it now is incoming. It looks like we've received a certain amount of visibility.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of incoming, and I hope I haven't been rude, but you've seen me on the phone just shutting the phone all the time, although it's on vibrate, because they keep coming in, and there's 3 or 4 numbers I don't recognize.
I'm trying to get you a new emoji designed that you can just press, just like a George busy with a hand up or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But I don't take any offense at it. Don't worry.
But it's very exciting. Again, I'm just honored to be part of a wonderful team, a wonderful community. I want to be clear, the TFA community is not our community. The TFA community belongs to themselves. And that is driving so much positive energy, and clubs and players are seeing it. So thank you to the community. Thank you to all. It's nonstop, man. Non-stop.
It's non-stop. Speaking of non-stop,
Julian, I'd love to talk to you because maybe we can help you guys together in some way.
Yeah,
we'll hook that chat up for you. Julian, it's been fantastic having you on. What can we expect from you? Have you got a busy week ahead? Is there anything that you can share with us, or is it a watch this space?
Well, this week it's been a case of, like I said, we did something with Les Reed, which again will have some really good insight into the recruitment process and setting up foundations in a football club. You know, going from tracking people like Van Dijk and Mane when nobody else was looking. They've actually got a process and an algorithm to make that work. And then prior to that, I know he's talking about African football. We actually did the captain of South Africa, a guy called Dean Furman, who was, again, his story is absolutely amazing. And he's, going to be helping us, launch out in, South Africa and get, wider there. But generally in-house at Football for Football, we're still technically in our growth phase. We've not really plugged in. We've had some great support. We've got some good people following us. But, for the people who are interested, there's a hell of a lot more to come.
Look forward to it. All we ask is that you'll come back on and share with us. You've been a wonderful guest. That story is legendary. I'm sure there's plenty more. Kev, what have you got in store? Is it La Liga? Well, it's not. It's international. But I mean, are you planning for La Liga, because it's all kicking off over there? It's boiling up nicely.
Yeah, it's boiling up nicely. So the build up to the weekend, obviously, it's all going to start, isn't it? Chuck in the internationals in the midweek as well. And then you got the Highbury squad going as well, Pete. So listen, I don't even get a chance to blink.
I saw all the hoo-ha in a positive way about the launch of the Highbury squad's new breakfast show, and I said something about tea and toast with the Gunners. The only person I didn't see comment on that was you. Was that sort of alluding to the fact that you're not a breakfast man?
No, I'll be on there, but I'm not really a breakfast man, as you know. But the great thing about the breakfast show, and this is for everybody listening, the breakfast show is going to be breakfast in different jurisdictions. Yep. So it's not just going to be one time. So the start is Monday, and that's going to be LA, and that's going to kick off. So in LA, that kickoff is 5:00 for the breakfast show. Next one, it might be Dubai. So it will be it will change for different parts of the world, Africa, India, etc., etc. So
you like
it's a different concept. Yeah, it's a different concept, so it's good.
Great stuff. Well, we wish you all the best. All that remains is to say a big thank you to everyone who's tuned in this afternoon in Dubai, this morning in Europe, and this morning wherever you may be. It's been fantastic. It's an over and out from us. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel for all of the news and giveaways and what we're doing. I'll see you in the TFA community. I'll see you on YouTube and my Facebook. From me, Geordie Pete Redding, have a brilliant weekend.